beautiful souls, beautiful beings. Welcome to another episode on the Heal, Develop, and Expand podcast, where we focus on our healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse, from trauma, from complex PTSD, and then we focus on self-growth, development, and expansion of our highest and greatest potential. My name is Elisabetta, and I'm a quantum narcissistic abuse recovery coach and energy healer. This means that I work on every single level possible on your healing and recovery, body, mind, and soul on an energetic level. So today we're going to talk on something really that it's not usually talked about a lot, and it's done also with the business world. And not only with the business world, but I really want to focus more on the entrepreneurs and the business owners that are trauma survivors, that are narcissistic abuse trauma survivors, and are growing their businesses after this huge impact that they had in their early life. So to really see where does this topic and why it's so important to talk about, and where does this come from, right? So I think it's really crucial to give some context. So I'm just going to add that all of this started like around 2 months ago, where I basically finished my third course in university. So I'm studying economics, and I just started to think about how to expand my business, my coaching business, and narcissistic abuse recovery and healing. So I started actually to think on how to expand it, and then by that time, in around July, by the end of June actually, I also was thinking of just ending my relationship with my narcissistic parents, especially my mother, and just going no contact because of the super toxic and abusive environment that was there. So I admit it was super stressful. Just the thought of living out of there, I was just stressing myself out. Like, I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I was 21, and it was my first time living on my own. I didn't have the skills because my parents literally didn't teach me anything. They told me that, as an excuse, they told me that I wasn't interested in doing anything, when in reality, I wasn't interested in them yelling and scolding and just insulting and calling me names, basically verbal abuse, for whatever they were trying to teach me, so to speak. And by the way, in my university friends group, I was the first one who was actually planning to really move out and get independent. So it was a really huge step for me. And I actually understand that. Like, I knew what I was going to do, but still I felt super scared. So the actual process of moving out, I think I will talk about this in another episode because it's not related to this, like the actual process. But I ended up living outside. Like, I first decided to come with a friend to a friend's house, and then after that I just started to rent my own room, basically. And between the Lionsgate portal, like the huge energy shifts that's in August, and also the crazy energy shifts that been going on July, I was just going crazy. I was going mad. I was super ungrounded. My anxiety, my stress was at its peak. Literally, I didn't know what to do, because it was like my first time living on my own, doing everything on my own. And I know that my parents always in this attempts of trying to educate me properly, which they tragically failed. And the worst thing is that they didn't recognize that they failed. Like, they always made excuses, especially my narcissistic mother. But yeah, I knew I was all on my own. I knew I had to take all the decisions on my own. And I think that really there's a struggle when you're a healthy person, that you have a healthy, secure nervous system, because you come from a secure, healthy family that knows how to self-regulate. And if you're a narcissistic abuse survivor, if you went through huge psychological abuse every freaking day, like emotional, mental, even physical abuse, the problem here, when you really get independent from these situations, is that you don't trust yourself. You constantly need other people to validate yourself. And this happened to me when I didn't have my parents. I was constantly, I won't say 24 hours a day, but most time I spent on the group chats with my university friends, just trying to ask for advice, or just asking if I was doing things the appropriate way, or if things were normal, because I totally didn't understand what was going on. Nothing was normal for me because I was stuck in a very chaotic household. And I'm not even talking about the fact that when I was staying with my friend, I was just so confused because they were treating me with kindness, like a normal human being. And I was always this hyper vigilant, expecting them to scold me, expecting them to be mad at me, and to just tell me how horrible I was. And it was just, the struggles of our nervous system, of our dysregulated nervous system. Then fast forward to the end of July, around the beginning of August, I started to realize how lonely I felt. How lonely it felt to grieve the loss of a family that they weren't physically dead, but it felt like that. It felt like they were dead because our contact was just zero, basically. And also I remember feeling so frustrated because they weren't reaching out to me. But then I was actually I needed to remind myself that what I had wasn't a normal, healthy family. My family dynamics wasn't repeated in the people around me, especially. And dysfunctional households are more common than we think. But in my case, with the people around me, with my friends, usually these things weren't discussed around. And from what I know, these people actually had like healthy dynamics, more or less. So I had to remind myself also that not everyone would ever understand my situation. And even if it was painful to admit that, it was okay at the end. Because we really cannot force people to understand us. So I started to basically feel my emotions too, because loneliness was just part of it. When I was living with my family, I often tried to numb, bottle up my emotions, and just focus on the task at hand daily, which was either with my business and my clients in the coaching space, or just trying to help other common friends to listen to them vent, or things like that. I was just not really caring for myself, even though I actually tried doing inner work. And I think I did really a good job compared to previous years. Despite not having, years of therapy, I had to do lots of self growth, lots of research, education, taking lots of courses on mental health and trauma informed therapy. Despite that, I understood that the loneliness was just another emotion that was coming up and that I had to deal with. And I admit it was a harsh one to actually feel in my body, and to just recognize that it was there. because the loneliness wasn't also just because in the grief process. It was to understand that, as I mentioned before, not all people would ever understand you, except if they lived through the same or similar abuse as well. That's why many survivors, basically, we understand each other, because we know what kind of tactics, what kind of manipulation dynamics, what kind of methods the narcissist used on us, and how we feel with this complex PTSD, how their actions resulted on our nervous system, how they impacted us. But this loneliness, it wasn't just for processing these emotions, for processing the trauma. I realized last weeks, like this 2 last weeks ago, that this loneliness is also the feeling alone when you're growing, when you're expanding at such a quick pace that people around you don't understand you, like seriously. And I'm going to put an example that happened with me as I'm telling you, but it really basically happened to me so many times when I was with my friends in her house, basically. And I met people that really didn't understand what was I thinking. They thought that maybe some of my actions were crazy ones, and I totally get their perspective, because they don't know. I mean, I'm an normal person, obviously, but they don't know how my mental process would go after abuse, specifically as a survivor. So we're always on constant alert on if someone is going to hurt us. Another thing is, no matter if you're a narcissistic abuse survivor, or you're coming from a secure attachment family, but in order to be successful in a business, you really have to detach, let go, release, transmute your old identity and go into a new one. Because you really can't accept all the abundance, you really can't accept all the happiness and joy that you want, the love that you want in your life, if you're still clinging into your old life. What do I mean with this old life? It's very simple. The trashy food that you eat, the sedentary lifestyle, you don't even move. No, I'm not even talking about working out. I'm talking about moving your body instead of just laying down or watching TV. And you need to educate, you need to expand your mind. And with this, I mean listening to podcasts like this and others on self-development. And if you're watching movies, watch movies that make you think, that make you reflect on your life. Also read lots of books, because they offer you perspective, new perspectives that you didn't think about before. They really expand your mind, they really expand your view on the world. And by all identity, I also mean the victim identity coming from abuse. And I understand, like, you need lots of validation, you need lots of love, you need lots of support coming from narcissistic abuse, from parents, family, or from your spouse. But it's not everything. Like, you can't keep your entire life craving from breadcrumbs of validation to tell you, like, hey, you're the victim, yes, you suffered. I was like that, I struggled like that, but I chose not to keep myself from this. Like, sure, we need to give ourselves lots of love, lots of compassion, and lots of kindness, but we shouldn't use our perspective, our position as victims to define ourselves. Because when we say we are, for example, survivors, we say that we went through that shit, we went through that trauma, and we rise above from that. Because it's really important to acknowledge that sometimes we might get stuck in the loop of feeling like a victim and feeling entitled of receiving everyone's attention and validation, which again, in the normal sense, it's good and you actually need it because you need support from coming from abuse. That's why there's lots of support group usually on Facebook, which it's really a great way to heal, to continue your recovery. But it's not the entire identity you should be focusing on. And especially if you have a business, which we're talking about right now, in this case, you should be always, at least most of the time, like 70%, 60% of the time, you should be learning more. You should be expanding your mind. You should be expanding your horizons and your heart as well, expanding your heart to acknowledge your unhealthy, toxic mechanisms that you learn from childhood or from the abusive relationships, and to transmute them into actually healthy ones. Now, another thing I realized coming from abuse is that not only we have to think and do exactly the opposite of what the narcissist does, because their main purpose is to bring us down, their main purpose is to set our life and just go for the next victim to basically to get the attention and the supply from. What we really have to do is to get out of this idea that if we have a business, for example, if we're in the services business, if we are a coach or mentor and we're teaching people, we really have to get out and learn to heal from this imposter syndrome, like we are not enough. This is something very common that you're going to have in your business, and it doesn't always happen only if you're a narcissistic abuse survivor. I believe that every person that is in the early stages of building a business actually deals with that. So you will have to learn to know that you're not an imposter. You're not in the wrong place. You have your expertise, you have your story, and you have the way that you actually healed and are growing from your story. And that is the way that you teach your clients on how to solve any issues. And this is the same way with a physical product. You have your story on why you are selling that product, and this is your unique signature point, that this is going to be the point, the energy blueprint that people are going to be attracted to you by your story, your energy, not by your words or by the techniques that you use. And this is also really something I'm not focusing on business yet from narcissistic abuse survivors. I'm planning to do so in the future, but we do so on the program on my module Becoming Phoenix, which is a transformational journey of 13 weeks lifetime access. And you go from point A, which you're feeling totally lost and you don't know what to do. You have sleepless nights, insomnia, flashbacks, nightmares. You have such a low self-esteem. You wish to be socially active as well because you're struggling with anxiety. I know what I'm talking about. I was socially anxious too. Now I believe I grew a lot from it, and I actually find myself quite confident talking with people and in front of the camera when necessary. So you go from these pain points, you go to raising your confidence a lot, like tenfold, to being healthy, to just being healthy in a way that you can regulate your nervous system without being dependent on others or thinking that only other people can help you to feel safe. You will reclaim your joy and your happiness if you decide to work with me. I tell you, it's so amazing. And the clients I'm working with, they had such amazing results. Like, for example, one, he really didn't believe in love. He thought that everyone literally hated him. But just 1 year, like, I'm not even saying 1 year, like, when we started working together, 4 months later, and he found love. Like, it was so amazing. And he started to become more confident in himself as well. Another client of mine, she loved the inner child connection exercises, because like with this connection exercises you actually can heal your abandonment wound and your betrayal, your heart, When you come from trauma, you have to really understand that the one that it's driving the life car of your life basically is your inner child, and it's not your adult self. So you have to reconnect with your inner child, and you have to make them understand that they are safe and that you are going to protect them from now on. And this is what we also focus on the Becoming Phoenix program, on the inner child and also the inner teenager. So when you're in business after narcissistic abuse, you really have to understand that unless you don't actively work on stripping yourself away from any traumas, limiting beliefs, blockages, emotional and energetic, from the abuse, you're not going to allow yourself for more abundance, money, joy, happiness, support to come. Like, you really have to let go of your old identity. You really have to let go of your old identity of being a victim in order to become a survivor, a victor, a thriver, and to allow more money, more joy to come in your business. Just see it as a bottle with sand. The sand represents your trauma, and the water represents the endless abundance you deserve, that it's your birthright, the endless love, support, maybe even the fame that you crave. And when you have lots of sand, like the bottle is 80% or even 90% filled with sand, almost no water can enter. You're literally blocking yourself from people, from good, genuine people to come to you, from clients, from your soulmate clients. You're blocking yourself from these people if you don't heal this trauma, which is acting as a blockage. And this is why I started healing on myself, like more, you know, strongly, more in a more intense way, and to just realize the journaling and to work on a somatic, mental, and energetic level. I started doing EFT tapping more often to reprogram my beliefs that were coming out, and that I was getting to be more self aware that I had them. And I also use subliminal audios that I really recommend you to use as well for, for reprogramming your mind, especially at night when you're sleeping. About the EFT tapping, I have a guided tutorial on my YouTube channel, which has the same name as the podcast, Elisabetta SK. And yeah, you can check it out. It really works. It just works wonders for helping you to heal. So this was part of my own healing this month. Now, the latest realization was that not only I had to strip myself away from my old identity, but this was also about finances. The type of people you surround yourself with are the ones that are going to let you know how much money, how much happiness, how much love you are going to allow to come into your life, to come into your reality. So maybe it's time for not only for myself, but for you as well to start looking for new connections. I really truly believe, to end this episode, that if you really want to be successful and truly happy, not only for your business but for your personal life, you have to let go of what the narcissist once thought that you were. Don't forget that if you want even more support with narcissistic abuse recovery and healing on a quantum level, body, mind, and soul, you can find my private community on Facebook, Becoming Phoenix, Healing Recovery from Narcissistic Abuse and Support as well. And also on my socials on Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube channel, where I give you even more content. And of course on my TikTok as well. You're free to check it out. Okay, so I really hope that you found this episode helpful and really useful for your life. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the social media. You can send me a private message on Instagram to so I know your thoughts, basically how you found it and what are your insights. Thank you so much for taking your time to actually invest your time and energy on listening to this, and see you in the next episode for more healing, development, and expansion of your soul, mind, and body.